they've already been through the show. All right, good morning, you guys. Before we get this show started, we'd like to do the 2025 Youth Producer Awards. My name is Cyrus Vore. I'm the new Kootenai-Shoshone County 4-H Program Coordinator, and I have the honor of bestowing the award to these three youths. So if I can get Colton Burnside, Bristol Burnside, all right, so these three youths this year took the
show. Entering the ring will be Class 1, cow, 3 years and older. Exhibited by Caden Mills Strader of the Jolly Workers of Micah.
It's gonna have them all day long.
From Hillsboro, Ohio. He's a graduate of the Ohio State University with a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science and a Master's in Education. As a member of the OSU livestock judging team, Jake has judged cattle shows at all levels in 15 states across the U.S. He works for the United Producers, Inc. as the Vice President of Livestock Marketing, where he leads a team that markets over 3 million head of livestock annually with 30 facilities in 8 states. He also owns Osborn show cattle with his wife, Wendy, and their 3 sons. They sell approximately 50 a year. Please help me give Jake a warm welcome to Idaho.
Nope. She knows where the outgate's at.
Micro Miniature Aberdeen Cross.
Micro Miniature Aberdeen Cross. Okay. Well, good morning, folks. Whoop. All right, good morning, folks. It's good to be here this morning, and we've got a single entry to start out our breeding show. The young man brings us a micro, he said, miniature, and it is a cross between an Aberdeen, he said. Now, this animal, as an individual, plenty sound on the move. When we analyze her, plenty of depth of body. Obviously, she's meant to be small, folks, and so she's never going to be real big, but she's going to raise good cattle. When you look at her, she's got good udder placement. She's sound on the move. She's got some thickness when you get behind her, and you got to appreciate her body depth. So give the young man a big round of applause on single entries in our cow class.
Ring will be our yearling heifer class, Sophia Balance.
All right, excellent class. As you guys are seeing, I'm placing bottom to top today. The blonde heifer is going to be the one that we start out with. She's the heifer, when you really analyze these, she's got the most depth of body. She's really sound on the move. You know, I think it's pretty close between her and the heifer in second, but she's just got more power in her rib shape. She's deeper in the center portion of that rib. She's deeper in her flank. She's a heifer when you get behind her, just a tick more thickness, and she's square from hooks to pins. You know, she's one that's going to make a really nice cow for this young lady. She's going to be a very good individual down the road. Black and white heifer that's going to get second. Most matches are a class winner for sure. She's a heifer that's sound on the move. When you analyze her compared to the rest of the class, she's just got a lot more power, a lot more rib shape. She's further along there. She's a heifer when you analyze her. When she fights, she gets up in her top just a tick on the move, but she's a sound heifer. You can tell that as she gets out here and goes. You know, I like her depth of body. I like how clean she is up through her front. You know, the heifer that comes in third, she's a heifer that's very, very long bodied. She's a heifer that really, really has a lot of eye appeal from a show standpoint. She'll make you some steers one day. She's probably the thickest when you get behind her out of those top three. You have to appreciate her hip. You have to appreciate her quarter. She needs to get bred. She needs to body down. When she does that, you'll like her even better, but she just needs more depth of body today in order to move up in the class. You know, the heifer that comes out in fourth, I'd like to see a little more of her, but she's made right. She's a heifer that when you really analyze her, she balances up well. She's clean up through her front 1/3. To me, she's sounder than the heifer that's going to round out the class, although I think it's close in size and performance, those two heifers. The heifer that rounds out the class, and the red heifer, you know, she's really hard to read when she fights the halter. She wants to get up in her top just a little bit. I think that heifer's sound enough on the move. When you analyze her, she's one that's going to make you some steers one day. She's big boned, big footed. She's got a little thickness to her. I'd like to see her just a little deeper bodied. I'd like to see her handle her top just a little different as she gets out and goes. But give that class a round of applause. Blonde heifer that wins that class here is pretty nice. shorter hips, she's shorter back. She's one that's probably going to make you some steers down the road. She's big-footed, she's big bone. I might like to change her feet. I think the feet on that second place ever just a little bit better. The feet on this one get to curling just a little bit, and they can serve me down the road. As long as you keep her feet trimmed, she'll be just fine. She's definitely a cool marked one, young lady. You got a really, really special one you'll love forever out in the field. And the heifer that's going to round out this class, definitely a steer mama down the road. She's one that's super thick. You have to appreciate her thickness over her top when you get behind her. Want to give the young man a little bit of fits today, but nothing bad. She's one that's, yeah, I have to appreciate her bone. I'd like to ease her down on those pasterns just a little bit and change the way she moves. I'd like to make more of her and make her just a little bigger frame to get on up in the class. But definitely has some thickness. You have to appreciate that about her. And young man, you got a nice one to make some steers out of one day. So give that class a round of applause. Pretty special heifer to win that class. A cow-calf pair that could stand some competition. This is a very good individual when you're talking about both of them, actually. The cow, you know, you look at her udder, it's impeccable. She's raising an April calf, doing a great job with that heifer calf. When you analyze her, she's got a great depth of body. She's not milking down too much. She's a heifer that's just really, really holding herself together well. She gets around the ring great. She's got extra thickness to her, and she's raising a calf that you would expect to see out of one that good. This heifer calf is one that has great depth of body for her age, being an April, great size. She's one, when you analyze her, the only thing you might change is up to her chest and to her neck just a little bit, but she's sound, she's thick, she's deep bodied, and the cow is just doing a phenomenal job with her. So give that cow-calf pair a big round of applause. We'll see her back in here in just a second.
Congratulations.
Okay, as we get to the end of our breeding show here, my job today is to select the top 5. Now, when we're selecting heifers, I want them to be feminine. I want them to go do their job as cows. They have to last a long time in the cow herd. I've learned a lot of hard lessons through the years running receive cows and doing different things with cows on ones that aren't sound, ones that don't milk, and ones that aren't there for the long haul. And they're not cheap to replace anymore. So those ones that put a scar on your head like the one this spring did to me, they're pretty quick to leave the herd. If they're going to come at you, if they're going to have a bad attitude, really look at you wrong at this point. They're worth so much money at the stockyards, then it's time to take them. And so these heifers in the ring, it's really, really easy to find 5 of them in here. I think there's 3 that stick out to me, and we'll place them here in just a second. But it really comes down to what ones. To me, it's very close. I mean, there's a couple of them in here that are a little extra body to them. There's a little extra cleanliness to their front end, a little extra substance and size to their feet, a little more bone to them, a little more thickness. And so just a tick more to certain ones out here. But I think that there's 3 individuals that fit the mold of what I'm looking for. So give these exhibitors a huge round of applause. The kids are doing a great job, and I'll go select you a top 5. get your good look, and I'll describe a little bit what we're looking for. So with those animals just entered the ring, the idea when they hit the ring, see if they're sound, see if they're good, get the big picture on this class, and that's what we're going to do. Now you'll see me walk up to them in just a second. I'm going to walk behind the cattle. I want to see how thick they are. I want to see if they start to have some finish to them, and how I can see that, and you guys can see it in the audience too. When they hit the ring, if they're kind of rolling around a little bit or loose or hided, that probably is a good indication of finish. This is a market steer show, and so they gotta be finished. They gotta be ready for market, and that's the idea at the end of this. You know, fat equals flavor if you're gonna go to the steakhouse later on this evening, and we want to make sure that they're fat and market ready. So you guys sitting in the front of the audience up there as those cattle hit the ring. The next thing I'm going to do when I walk down the back side is walk down the front side. You guys can evaluate finish along with me. If they're big and full in their brisket up there in their chest, that's a good indicator that they're a finished steer. And so that's what we want to see as some of these classes get heavier. Now 1,100 pound steers, I would expect that some of these need more cover on them, and probably the entire class, but we'll see when we get their hands on them. And that's the advantage that I'll have that you guys don't. I'll walk up to the kids, you'll see me ask them one question, and that's what their animal weighs. Now if they don't know, that's okay. There's people around the ring that have papers that say what they weigh, so I'll ask them. And then after that, I'll put my hands on them. And when I do that, I'm going to feel them for finish. Now, if I feel over their ribs, I don't want them to feel like your knuckles. We want them to feel really like the backside of your arm. We want them to have some cover on them, okay? Also, I'll feel them in their flank, and that's a good indication of fat and finish as well. So after that, we'll walk the animals around the ring. We're going to evaluate them for soundness. We're going to evaluate them for that show steer look, and we want them to have some look and eye appeal too, because it is a show. We want them to have show steers at the end of the day. So after that, I'm going to place them bottom to top. Remember, this is the longest project on the fairgrounds, okay? These kids oftentimes have these animals well over a year. It's also one of the most expensive, and feed cost alone, it can be $2,500, $3,000 in feed alone to get an animal into this ring today. So we're going to give them a good look. We'll give them their time in the ring, and we'll place them bottom to top. It doesn't matter if they're first or last. Please give them a round of applause. So go ahead and give this class a round of applause when we get to judging. Good job, young man. Good job at home with the feet. Second place in this class. You know, that steer gets second for a couple of reasons. That calf's got just a little more finish over his ribs than the steer in third. He's a steer, when you get right behind him, probably has just a little more thickness in his lower quarter. He gets around the ring really good. He's a steer that could benefit from more time on feed. That would make him drop that rear flank. That would just need more of him when you get over his top as well. But a steer that really gets around the ring good and has some thickness to him. He's got the advantage in finish over the third place steer. The show steer and eye-appealing steer is the young man in third. And good job, young man, in sticking with that one. He's kind of being a jerk today, but you did a great job in getting him shown out here. So congratulations on sticking with that one. You know, when you analyze that steer, he's long-bodied. He's a steer that's thick over his top. He's got a big hip in him, and you have to appreciate that about him. He's the biggest foot and biggest bone in the class. He just needed more time on feed. If he had another 45 to 60 days on feed, he would have dropped this flank. He would have had a little more cover over his ribs, and he could have really pushed to probably win that class. He just didn't have enough cover on him quite today. So the steer that comes out next, the red steer, the blue one was next. The blue steer was next. When he comes out here, he's got just a little more finish on him today than the red steer did. He's a steer that's a little shorter backed. He's deep bodied. You have to appreciate those things about him. Market readiness in that one's pretty good. But when he gets in motion, he wants to get a little restricted movement off his rear legs. He's a little longer about those toes. Doesn't have quite the thickness and eye appeal of some of those cattle above him, but compared to the steer that rounds out the class, does have more finish. He's more market ready today. The red steer that's going to round out this class, he's a steer that's deep bodied. He's sound on the move. He's a steer that just needed to be a little thicker when you get behind him and need more days on feed to go ahead and have more finish over his ribs. So give that class a big round of applause. Pretty nice steer to start out the class. stalked out there. That one's going to win the class and wins it pretty handily, to be honest, folks. That calf, when you really analyze him, you get over his back, he's wide there. He's wide when you get behind him. Just a good made calf. He's a steer that when you get your hands on him, he's very fresh to the handle, and he's finished out here better than anything in the class. When you set that steer in motion, that's be the one way you could change him a little bit. He wants to get up on his pasterns a little bit, but that's a big bone, big footed, good looking steer. Young lady, you got to go in and start the class, so congratulations. The calf that matches him from an eye appeal standpoint, just to show steer standpoints, the young lady's calf that gets second in this class. That calf, when you really analyze him, probably sounder on the move than the calf that wins the class. When you analyze him as well, you get right behind him. He's square over his hip than that third place steer. I think finish on those two is very close. I think that maybe the third place steer's got a little more cover on him, but this second place steer's got enough. Now, he could have benefited from a maturity standpoint, just a little more time on feet. That would have made him drop that rear flank just a little bit, body down, and that's what that calf needs, just a tick more mass to compete with that class winner. Another 100 pounds would have did him well. The steer that gets third in this class, from a market readiness standpoint, that one's really good. He's finished, he's right there, and that's what gets him in third over the fourth place steer. He's more market ready today. He's thick over his top, he's got some thickness when you get behind him. Not quite the show steer look from the side that the first two steers have in this class, but a steer that's still adequate in terms of the way he looks and gets around the ring. He's a steer that just, you wanted that one in third, at home with the feed pain, young lady, so good job. Great job at home with the feed pain. And the calf that gets fourth in this class, just starting to put some cover on. He's thick-ended. When you get over his top, he's thick. When you get behind him, he's got some thickness to him. Definitely big bone, has a show steer look. That one could have benefited from more time on feet. He gets a little raw over those ribs when you get over him. I'd like to square him up on his hips when you get right behind him, but definitely a steer that's big bone, has some thickness to him. So give that class a round of applause. High-quality steers from start to finish in that class. There you go. good looking cattle. You know, if you're fourth, fifth in this class, don't feel bad. This is a buzzsaw of a class, and there's a lot of heat out here. Starting with this blonde steer, the young man's, this one puts a lot of good pieces together. When you analyze this calf, thick-ended. This is the thickest steer in the class over his top. When you get behind him and can still handle himself well on the move, he's adequate in terms of finish and just does a lot of things right. He kind of wins this class pretty handily, and that's a really good calf. So give that young man a big round of applause. Second and third, I think, is the biggest decision in this class. You know, I think the second place steer, when you get him out here, just a tick bigger bone, bigger footed, just a tick thicker when you get behind him as well. He got just a little more quarter to him, very fresh to the handle. He's a steer, yeah, he could change just a little bit when you set him in motion. He could relax on those pasterns, but in comparison to that steer that gets third, he's a steer that probably has a little more product to him, just a lot more muscle over his top. He's a steer that you have to appreciate from a muscle standpoint. If you could change that steer, I'd like to maybe fill him in his heart just a little bit, maybe like to give him a little more angle to that front. He gets just a tick straight at that knee, but that's being critical of a very nice steer in that black and white one. You know, this blonde steer that comes out next, the peach color one right here, the young man's, that one's finished just to a T. He does a lot of things right, and he has to get a look out here. He's well balanced, he's deep bodied. He's a steer that when you analyze him, very adequate in terms of finish. He's a steer that puts a lot of good pieces together from a side profile view. He doesn't have quite the top, as far as with the top coming out of his shoulders all the way back to his tail head as that second place steer. Now compared to the rest of the class, he's got it. He's deeper bodied, more product oriented than that calf that comes out next. Maybe just a tick flatter in terms of his muscle as he goes away from you right in that lower quarter, and that's why he's going to go ahead and get third today. But a very nice steer. Black steer that comes out next, he's big-ended. He's one that really, when you analyze him, has probably more muscle over his top than that steer that goes in front of him. I'd like to see this steer relax just a little bit on the move. He wants to get up in his top just a little bit. He needs a little more flank when you look at him from the side profile view and a little more depth of body to go ahead and move up in this class. But he's finished well. He's got a lot of thickness to him, and you have to appreciate those things about him. A little more time on feed, and that maturity probably would have came in that one. The next steer that comes out, sees a deep-bodied, sound-moving calf. He's very finished adequately. He's a steer that probably, when you analyze him, is better behind the shoulders than this calf that's going to round out the class, just a little thicker when you get behind him. I'd like to change him just a little bit in the way that tail head comes up. I'd like to lay that in a little neater. I'd like to maybe really get this calf a little more flank to move up in the class. But a very adequately finished calf. Doesn't have quite the bells and whistles of some of those steers above him, but this is an awfully tough class, and that's a nice steer. Calf that rounds out this class, he's one that's really long-bodied, he's very sound on the move, and he's finished just to a T. You did a great job feeding this one at home. He's a steer that probably needs a little more thickness to him to compete with those steers above him in this class. Just a little more muscle would have did this one some good. But excellent class of steers from top to bottom. Give him one more round of applause. That blonde steer that wins the class sure is a nice one. All right, excellent class of steers. You know, this one's probably the tightest in terms of placings that we've had in the ring, the most quality from top to bottom in a class. These cattle are finished, they're good, and you have to appreciate that about them. So young people, great job feeding these cattle. Give them a big round of applause on a great class of cattle. The steer that finds its way to the top is this smoke-colored baldy of the young ladies. Just a lot of good in this calf. Now, structurally, this is the best out of the top three. That calf's very good in terms of finish. He's a calf that when you analyze him doesn't blow the class away in terms of muscle, but he's the most complete by far. He's a steer that balances up good from the side, very sound on the move, great finished steer, and when you get him fit up like you've got him today and get him shown like you've got him, boy, he just rises toward the top of the class. He's a steer that if you could change him, I'd like to give him just a little more punch when you get right behind him, but a very adequately muscled steer that puts a lot of good pieces together. He's better through his front end. He's better from a balance standpoint than that steer that's going to get second, probably has more muscle right over his top as well. Steer that gets second, I think the decision in this class is between second and third. The steer that's going to come out here and get second just has a little more punch and muscle when you get right behind him in that lower quarter than the steer does in third. He bounces up extremely good from the side. Yeah, you know, he gets a little shorter fronted. He's jammed up just a little bit there. And him and the steer in third are getting enough cover on him to the point where they're getting just a little wide and trucky on those front ends. But when the young lady puts him together, like she did right there, and gets those front feet underneath him and closer together, that steer gives you an excellent look from the side. He bounces up just a tick better than that steer in third, a little more depth of body, and definitely a little more punch from that lower quarter. I like this steer from a cover standpoint extremely well. Yeah, you like to lengthen him out in that front end just a little bit, but this is a show steer and he's a finished one. So good job, young lady. You got a nice one. The calf that comes in third today, that calf is another one compared to the rest of the class out here. He's deeper, he's thicker, just got a lot of good product to him. He's a steer when the young lady gets this one set up. He gives you a striking good look from the side, and that red and white steer just deep body, thick, and a lot of good parts and pieces. If you could change that steer, I'd like to smooth him out in his top just a little bit. I'd like to change him in his chest and at the top of his neck just a little bit. But he's a steer that if you can keep those front feet underneath him and close together, he gives you a really good look. He is a little straighter in the angle of that front shoulder, but balances up extremely well, has a lot of product to him, and just thicker right behind his shoulders and over his top than the red steer that comes out next. The red steer that comes out next, when you analyze that steer, he's sound on the move and he finished out really well. He probably has more thickness when you step right behind him than the black steer that comes after him. He's deep bodied, but doesn't balance up quite like those steers above him. Doesn't quite have the punch and muscle of those, but he's an adequately finished steer. He's sound on the move, has a lot of good parts that you have to really like. He's deeper bodied, he's just a little thicker from behind than the black steer of the young ladies that comes out next. The black steer of the young ladies is definitely better in cover. That's a well-balanced steer. I'd like to see him with a little more flank. I'd like to see him with a little more thickness when you step right behind him. But he's big bone, he's finished well, and you have to appreciate those things about him. He's really a good calf in a really tough class. So young lady, you got a nice steer. Unfortunately, something had to go on down the line today. He wants to get up in his top and just get a little tie right there in the middle of his back. If we could drop him in his flank and smooth him out on the top, he could stand up one spot. The calf that rounds out this class, he's got some thickness to him when you get behind him. He's sound on the move. Young lady does a nice job of getting that one shown. That calf needs to be deeper body, needs a little more time on feed to just get a little more cover over those ribs. We give that class a really big round of applause. 3 nice steers in that class. A really tough one to sort. All right, Peach Steer wins this class, and I think he does so pretty handily. That's a really, really good calf. From a soundness standpoint, that's the true reason why he wins this class. That steer's good looking from the side. He's very, very big back. That steer gets around the ring sound, and he's got a ton of product to him. When you get behind that steer, he's a little square about his hip, a little bigger about his back. That steer handles himself much better on the move, and he just kind of handles this class. Very, very nice steer, young man. We got a good one. You know, I think the real decision when you get down here is second through fourth in this class. The calf that gets second, just a little square about his hip. He's bigger backed than the calf that's going to go ahead and get third. He's a steer that I like from a muscle standpoint. I like from a balance standpoint. You got him fit up extremely well, and you're doing a great job in getting him shown. If I could change his steer, it'd be two ways. He gets a little plainer about his front, right on the underside of that neck. The biggest thing, though, is when you set that steer in motion, he's got a little bit of a deformed claw on that back foot. He got to this point, though, maybe drop him in that rear flank compared to our class winner, but a steer that's finished just perfect. He's got a lot of product to him, and that's what gets him in that second hole today. Another steer that's kind of a meat and potatoes kind of a steer, but really good, is a steer that's going to get third. He's a steer that when you analyze him bounces up well. He probably is a little sounder with a little more rear flank than that baldy steer that goes out before him. But he's a steer that's a little shorter back. He's a steer that when you analyze him wants to get a little choppier about his top. He wants to get roll on that tail head just a little bit and gets a little plainer looking, but really finished well, really sound, and just a lot of good in that calf right there. He's got a little more punch and muscle when you get right behind him than the next calf that comes out. He's a little better right behind his shoulder, just shorter back, bigger back as well. The steer that comes out next, no slouch. That one's sound on the move. He's long-bodied. He's a steer that's deep enough. He's got enough thickness to him, but not quite as much as those steers right ahead of him. He's a steer that when you analyze him, probably a little better right in that top than the steer that goes ahead of him. I'd like to maybe change the steer in a couple of ways. Right back in his flank, maybe give him a little more substance of bone and foot. He's a steer that doesn't have quite the thickness when you step right behind him in that lower quarter of those cattle right above him. But he's finished great. Young lady's doing a great job of getting out and showing, and that's a good calf. And a calf that rounds out this class. Nothing wrong with this calf as far as finish. He's finished extremely well. He's deep-bodied and sound enough. He's a steer that doesn't have quite the muscle the other steers in this class, doesn't balance up quite as well from the side profile view. But give that calf a big round of applause. That entire class is extremely good, including that Peach Keller class winner. in the ring that were born and bred obviously right here in the county. Awful nice cattle, and these exhibitors are doing a great job in getting them shown. Now I'll talk a little more at the end. One thing I'll tell you is everybody always asks me, what should their steer weigh? You know, what should they do? You need to make your steer weigh what they need to weigh in order to look good. It doesn't matter to me what these cattle weigh, if it's 1,200 to 1,600. If we're talking about a feedlot scenario, the average weight that they come off a feed yard right now is right around 1,600. And so these cattle, a lot of them are smaller than that. But that's okay. A lot of these cattle are fed to the weight they need to be in order to be finished and look extremely good. And so that's what we're after. These cattle are fit and presented very, very well, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But the kids are doing a great job. The cattle were born and bred right here, and that's something to be very proud of. So I'm going to go get you a champion, and my job today in this show is to keep picking in order to make your sale order. And so I'll keep judging and picking cattle as we go, and then we'll do it all again here in just a minute. So give them one more round of applause, and I will start picking your champion in reserve. To me, there's one out here that just fits the mold of what I'm after from a champion standpoint very well. It's a thick-made calf. It's a sound-moving calf, finished just to a T, and I mean, just puts a lot of good pizzas together. Complete. So I'll go get you a champion, and we'll wait just a second for those second places to come back in. Good job, young man. Nice calf.
Congratulations.
Take him right up there.
Landon Carhart.
Congratulations. Good job.
Congratulations to our reserve Cooney Show.
As we get into our market steer show, a little different class to sort, and there's a lot of cattle in this class in particular that need more time on feed. They're just not quite market ready. The one that comes closest, I think, is this one, maybe the one in fourth, but this one's sound, this one's got some muscle. This blue steer is going to be your class winner. He balances up well. He's deeper bodied than that calf in second. He's more market ready than the calf in second from a finish standpoint. He's a calf that does have some muscle, and he's sound on the move. Now, he balances up extremely well. Maybe he doesn't have quite the length of neck and that show steer look that second place calf has, but this one's got more finish. He's just a little more ready today. The calf that comes out in second, he's the show steer in this group. He's big bone. He's a steer that's very square about his hip. He's long fronted and gives you a striking look from the side. Now, when you set that calf in motion, he does good there as well. He's got an advantage over the steer in third, and it's kind of a wash on finish, but he's got more show steer look. This calf needs a lot more time on feed to go ahead and belly down. He needs to be a little more mature, but he's a calf that gives you that show steer look. And in a class where a lot of them aren't quite finished enough, this one kind of rises up toward the top. I wish he had a lot more weight. I wish he had a lot more time on feed. If that calf's 150 pounds heavier, he is very difficult to get around, but he just doesn't have it today. The calf that gets third, the smoke-colored calf, deeper bodied than the black steer that goes before him. I think muscle's close. He doesn't have quite the squareness of hip. He doesn't quite give you that show steer look from the side, but a steer that's really deep-bodied, he's sounder on the move than the next two steers that comes out, and he's got more muscle. He's a deep-bodied steer, but he's pretty raw when you get your hands over his ribs. He could stand a lot more time on feed. That would have made the steer thicker. It would have dropped his rear flank, and you would like it even better. The black steer that comes next, he's the calf in this class, much like that blue steer that wins a class, probably has the most finish or closest to it. Now, he could still stand a little more time on feed, but this calf kind of falls apart when he gets in motion. He wants to get a little straight about his front end. He wants to get just a little cut up in his flank and a little piecey out here, but he's a steer when you analyze him, you have to appreciate the cover that he does have, and the thickness gets him above the Hereford mark steer that rounds out the class. The Hereford mark steer is very sound on the move. He gets around the ring just good. He's a steer that's long-bodied, and he's deep-bodied. He's a steer that could use a little more muscle. He could definitely use more time on feed as well. That would drop that rear flank and make him even thicker. But a steer that, compared to some of the other ones in this class, has a little more cover, and you did a good job feeding this in a home, young man. So give that class a round of applause. Good way to start out our market steer show. Sound made steer, and you just can't say enough good about this steer. He wins it pretty easily. Young man, you got a really nice steer. He's finished correctly. He's the soundest one in the class. He's extremely thick. You know, I think muscle is close between him and the smoke one, but this steer is way high quality. I mean, he gets around the ring great. He's a good looking show steer from the side, and just a lot of positives about that guy. He's super complete, wins this class easily. The decision for me comes between second and third. The calf that gets second does so from a muscle standpoint. When you get behind that steer, he's extremely thick. When you get behind him and over his top, he's got the advantage, just muscle right there. Now, he doesn't get around the ring quite as good as the steer that comes in third. He's not presented quite as highly, but he's a steer that's deep bodied, he's well balanced, and definitely wins it in terms of muscle. The calf that comes in third, adequate in terms of finish. He's sound on the move, he balances up well, he gives you that show steer look, and he matches our class winner from the side profile view. When you analyze this steer and look at his thickness, I'd like to make him just a little wider coming out of the point of those shoulders and over his top, and then when you get right back behind him, right in that lower quarter, give him a little more punch there, and he can get second in this class. The calf that comes next in the smoke-colored steer, that one's a show steer look from the side. He's sound enough on the move, he's deep-bodied, he's thick over his hip. He's a steer that when you really get your hands on him, he could use a lot more time on feed. He's a deep-bodied kind of calf that's presented well, and the young man does a good job showing him. When you get your hands on this steer, he's pretty raw over those ribs. A lot more time on feed can make him drop that flank and widen out that heart girth and over that top. He's got more of a show steer look, and he's sounder though than the calf that right here that rounds out the class. Young lady's calf that rounds out the class is finished well. You did a great job feeding this one at home. He wants to get a little planer made from the side as he gets down and deep in that chest, but he's a sound made finished steer that you have to appreciate. Excuse me. I'd like to change him a little bit as he gets wasty in that navel and that chest, but good job feeding us in at home. He's a steer that's a product-oriented kind of a calf. So give that class a round of applause. Black steer that starts out that class sure is nice.
Congratulations.
The ones we place, we'll talk about those two steers that are standing out there, and then we'll place them. This is an excellent class, so give these exhibitors a huge round of applause. Cattle are extremely good out here, and we'll go ahead and talk what we placed. The steer that's going to get third in this class, excellent look from the side. He's a balanced steer. He's sound on the move. Young lady said he's a purebred Angus, and that's to be expected. When you get right behind that steer, he's a long muscled steer, but gets a little flatter muscled right in his lower quarter compared to those top two steers in this class. But compared to the other ones in this class, finished impeccably. Calf balances up well. He gives you that show steer look from the side. He's longer fronted. He balances up better than the next two. Smoke steer that comes out next, a lot of product in that steer. He's big backed and thick when you get behind him. If you want to use him in third, I wouldn't argue with you too much from a muscle standpoint, but that steer gets a little bit raw in certain places and doesn't move quite as well as that third place steer. He's a steer that when you analyze him wants to get just a little choppy over his top, round just a little bit from hooks to pins. And when you really analyze him, he wants to get a little jammed up in his front. But he's longer bodied and there's more product there than the fifth place steer in this class. Young lady steer right here, he's finished great. He wants to get a little different in the way he's structured up through that front end. He gets a little straighter there. He's a steer though that's deep bodied. He's thick made when you get behind him. He just struggles to get around the ring a little bit and not near as big of a package as the other ones in this class. Now let's talk about these two that are left because they are very nice show steers standing in the ring. We'll just talk them front to back. The Bronco-headed steer in this class, a steer that you have to appreciate in terms of raw muscle. He's got a lot of turn to his top. He's a steer that when you analyze him, he really balances up extremely well. Now, if you were to change this steer, it'd be a couple different ways, but he's extremely good. Thick enough, good enough all the way through. That steer, when you really analyze him, he wants to cut up in his flank just a little bit, and when he gets in motion, maybe doesn't reach quite as far off his back leg. He's a steer that maybe pushes up into that top just a little bit, and maybe not a smooth top as the steer standing right behind him. But an excellent show steer out here. He gives you a striking look from the side and a lot of quality there. The black steer, the young lady in the pink shirt there, that steer is balanced extremely well. He's a steer that when you analyze him, he gets show steer look all day long. He gives you an excellent look from the side. When you analyze that steer, he just is really complete. When you look at him from the side, he's not quite as deep bodied as that Bronco-headed steer, but when you analyze him, he's put out just as much punch from behind. He's a little squarer in his hip. He's a little smoother in his top. Now, when he gets in motion, he maybe wants to push that halter side rear leg and doesn't quite reach off of it like I'd like him to, but that's being critical of a very nice steer. He's a little smoother about his top. He's a little more complete in his look. He's going to be your class winner, and the Bronco-headed steer will be second. So give them two a round of applause. Excellent set of steers. All right, as we get to the final drive here, excellent group of cattle, and even more important, an excellent group of kids today. They've all been courteous. They've all hit the ring and did their job getting their cattle set up. And so please join me in giving these kids and their cattle a big, big round of applause. These families got them looking good. The kids are doing a great job showing. So folks, judging these state fairs like this, I really, really appreciate it. You know, it takes a crew. And it takes a crew to get me here. And so I want to thank my wife. I want to thank my kids at home. We're getting ready for a cattle sale this weekend. And so I'll get back after midnight on Friday night. And I'm hoping like heck that my kids got everything in line. We're going to have 150 carloads of people and a congressman at our house this weekend. And so I can only tell you the list of honeydew jobs that I've had over the last week. You can imagine. But it's been fun. And I know I've got a 22-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 13-year-old, all boys. And this vehicle that's in the ring right now, they've all did. And so it's made them good kids. And everything that we're after in raising our kids, this vehicle that's in the ring, cattle, have helped do that with mine, I know. So I'll tell you a little bit, a little story, and I'll get you a champion, and we'll keep picking out here. But, you know, at our state fair this year, there were about 120, 130 steers. The money that was spent on those things was phenomenal this year. There were 3 steers, males, castrated males, that were over $100,000 steers. None of them won. Not a one-on-one. It doesn't matter the cost of the animal. It matters what you and your family put into it, and more importantly, what these kids get out of it. It does not matter, okay? What matters is what's standing in the ring right now, and it's not the cattle, it's these kids. The companies that I've worked for in the past has been bigger pharmaceutical companies. It's been Behringer Ingelheim and Merck, and the company that I run now is United Producers. It's the largest livestock marketing co-op in the United States. We want 4-H and FFA members that have been standing in a ring like this. We want kids that know how to raise a project. They get lessons in time management. They get lessons in responsibility. They get lessons in winning and losing and getting their butt kicked, okay? Because in the real world, when you're out there working, it happens every day. And you guys know that. And so kids, you're doing something right. Parents, you're doing something right by having your kids out here, regardless of the cost of the project, okay? These are the future of the ag industry. These kids are. And this is the vehicle that gets them here. So give these kids and their parents a huge round of applause. These kids are all winners that hit the ring today. It don't matter if they got slap champion. It don't matter if they were last in class. They learned lessons from the project. And by the way, this is the longest project on the fairgrounds. It's the most expensive, usually, project on the fairgrounds. And these kids really get attached to them. They spend their lives in the barn, okay? There's nothing wrong with spending your life and getting attached to a project like this, okay? It's great. Now, everything you do with your kids' parents is expensive. It don't matter if you're playing travel baseball. It don't matter if you're showing steers. It don't matter if you're taking them to cheerleading competitions. It's all expensive, but the outcome and what I want to hire for the company that I manage are these kids right here, because they're the future leaders, and that's what's important. So I'm going to go get you a champion. Give them one more round of applause, and I'll select you a champion in reserve out here today, and then we'll keep picking from what I understand. So thank you guys for having me, and I'll talk one more time in just a second. Champion, he was the thickest rascal in the ring. When you get behind that steer, that's where he wins. Right over that top, right behind him. He was a little more moderate, but big bone, really thick, and a lot of good in that calf, folks. Now, you can tell when you slap that champion, it means something to that little boy. And that's pretty special. We're going to go get you a lot more champions out here today. And so as we do that, remember, these kids put their heart and soul into this. Their families do as well. This is a family project. And I know for my kids, I wouldn't have it any other way. So give them one more round of applause. Thank you guys for having me, and I'll be quiet and start picking. pretty special when you can raise your own calf, and I know that my boys enjoy doing that. My middle son, the 18-year-old, has an embryo co-op program. He put in over 200 embryos, about 40 were ours, and that is his FFA project. And so he does that at a dairy, and it's a way that the boys can raise another 40 calves a year or so for us. And so it's very special to them when they hit the ring with something that they raise, and I know for these kids it would be too. So in this class, the red and white steer is going to be your champion. Red's going to be reserve. Give them a big round of applause. Congratulations to the young folks.